let me go ahead. Okay. Well, welcome to the Fall 2022 JAMI Career Webinar Series Kickoff event. We are so excited about today's topic, which is creating multiple revenue streams. I know many of you, like me, are probably wondering, how do we go about doing that? My name is Yas Hardaway, and I'm the Executive Director of Career Services at GSEP. And this event is in partnership with our Alumni Relations team. So some of you who are new may be wondering, what is JAMI? JAMI is a Swahili term for community, and our JAMI Communities of Practice programs are really designed to provide up-to-date labor market information in the fields of education and psychology, and really to create a community, a professional community where we can lift one another. So in the fall, we have our JAMI Career Webinar Series, which are moderated panels. And in the spring, we have our JAMI Career Connect sessions, which are interactive learning sessions and are comprised of small breakout discussions. Okay. So just a few housekeeping items. We are recording the session so that you have an opportunity to go back and review, and also for those who weren't able to make it, that they have an opportunity to hear the information. Live transcription is provided, and as questions come up, please feel free to include those in the chat, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. So our learning outcomes today, what do we hope you will get from the session today? The first one is, we hope that you'll gain a better understanding of how to identify opportunities and begin cultivating multiple income streams. We also hope that you can gain a better understanding of how to manage multiple roles and responsibilities that come with managing multiple revenue streams as well. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our Director of Alumni Relations, who will be introducing the panel and leading our moderated Q&A. Dr. Renee Dorn.
Thank you so much, Yas. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our JAMI session. It's a pleasure to have you here. At this time, I'd like to introduce our three speakers. So our first one, I'm so excited for you to meet her because she was one of my schoolmates. We're both graduates of the EDOL program, and her name is Sean Andrews. So welcome, Sean, to the JAMI session.
Thanks, Renee. Hi, everyone. Sorry I can't be on video. I'm in my car driving from San Diego back to Orange County right now, but I will be on the phone and happy to take any of your questions.
Wonderful, wonderful. Sean, at this time, I'd like for you just to tell everybody a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you're doing now.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I wear a lot of hats now. I am self-employed. I've been self-employed for about 8 years now. But for 22 years, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry in sales and training and development roles primarily. So what I realized about myself is that I'm an educator by nature, which is probably why I was drawn to the EDOL program and got my doctorate in education.
Yes.
Because I am a true educator. So, so I have experience in training and development, and I have sales experience from pharma. And then what happened in 2014 is I was working at Allergan, which is a pharmaceutical company based in Irvine, and they got acquired by another company. And as a result of that acquisition, about 3,000 people got laid off into Orange County. Well, I was one of them, and my job was eliminated. I was leading the training and development department for both medical affairs and R&D at the time, and my job was eliminated. So I got laid off, but I was lucky to get a severance package because I'd been there for 7 years. And I took it as an opportunity, or I looked at it as an opportunity, and I thought, you know, and I had just gotten my EDD the year before in 2013, and I thought, you know, I've never really tried my hand at my own business, and you know, this might be a good chance to do that. And the severance gave me a little bit of a cushion, you know, where I could take the risk, and so so I did. So I decided to start my own business as a speaker initially as a speaker, because that's my main passion is, again, speaking and educating. And I had heard that it takes about 3 years to turn a profit in your own business. And so I gave myself 3 years, and if I couldn't, make ends meet, I was going to go back and, go back into corporate and get a pharma job. But here I am in year 8. I'm happy to say, and I do have multiple income streams, which I'll just briefly touch on now, and I'm happy to talk more about those as throughout the discussion.
Okay.
But there are about 10, at least 10 different income streams you can have when you have your own business. I have 6 different revenue streams. Speaking is one. And matter of fact, I'm coming from a speaking engagement right now. That's what I'm driving back from. And so doing keynote presentations for organizations, for women's groups, on the topics of diversity, equity, and inclusion, bias, women in leadership, and emotional intelligence. Those are my primary areas of expertise. So speaking is my main revenue stream, but then I also have consulting. That's something I really started doing this year. Started consulting to different companies on their diversity and inclusion efforts.
Okay.
So I just started that, and I'm really enjoying that. My third revenue stream is coaching, and that's something I've been doing for a few years now. And usually it's individual coaching around emotional intelligence is most of that. And then my fourth revenue stream is my book. So I took my dissertation research actually from the EDOL, which was on the broad topics of women in leadership, and I parlayed that into a book. I did more research, wrote a book that came out in 2018, and the book is called The Power of Perception, Leadership, Emotional Intelligence, and the Gender Divide. And so that is a revenue stream as well, albeit not a lot. Writing a book is not a big money maker, but it does help with visibility and credibility, and it helps get me speaking gigs. So that's a revenue stream. My fifth revenue stream is teaching. So I'm an adjunct professor at Pepperdine in the business school, and I also teach at UC Irvine. And I've been doing both of those for 5 or 6 years now, and both in the business school. And so I teach org behavior, women in leadership primarily at those schools. And then my sixth revenue stream is training workshops. And because I have a training background from pharma and a degree in education, I use that training background, and I love teaching workshops. So I do workshops on emotional intelligence, women in leadership, also it's Insights Colors, which is a personality-based workshop. So and DEI, actually, all of my topics I also do training workshops on. So that's another revenue stream in addition to the keynote. So I have 6, and that's why I was interested in speaking today, because I'm happy to share, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about that. And then there's other revenue streams too that I haven't quite gotten into. Maybe my co-speakers, could speak to that, but I know a lot of people have, lead a mastermind group. That could be a revenue stream. Having online courses, that's another one. Serving on a corporate board is another, area of interest for some people. And then affiliate income, which is getting paid when you promote other people. You can also get a percentage for that. So there's all in all about 10 different revenue streams when you're self-employed, and it's a good thing. So I'll stop there and yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Sean, that's a lot of revenue streams. My goodness. But that's fantastic. That's what this whole webinar is all about. So thank you. But we're going to come back to you, and I'm going to introduce our next speaker, who is LJ Lumpkin. So welcome, LJ.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. LJ, give us a little bit about your background and what you're doing right now.
Yes, so I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. My company that I own is called Nomad Healing Practices, where I specialize in trauma treatment. I do psychedelic assisted coaching and integration. I am also doing trainings for different companies where it comes to how to work with trauma, mindfulness skills, and diversity inclusion skills as well. I'm an author. I published a book right here, Climbing Out of the Box, A Path Towards Healing from Systemic Racism this year. And that was just in the attempt to really help people start having those conversations around diversity. I am also a board member of Clearly Clinical, which is a national podcast for mental health services that does offer CEU credits for anyone that's looking for them. I also work in corporate America doing some coaching, diversity inclusion, as well as emotional intelligence, as Sean was speaking to. It's much needed in that area. And I facilitate different types of meetings where tech officers are trying to really cultivate communication skills.
Wow, a lot of revenue streams right there as well. And I want to get into each and every one of them and to get a little more detail for everybody to understand how in the world you're getting into all these different revenue streams. Okay, thank you, LJ. And so for our last panelist, we have an MSOL alum, and she's also a current student in our PhD in Global Leadership and Change program, and that is Kate Scott. Hi, Kate.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about your background and what you are doing now.
Of course. So I grew up in the entertainment industry. So the majority of my upbringing was very entrepreneurial by default, given all the different realms to show business because it is a business. So from that, I had traditional income from projects as well as brand partnerships the last almost decade probably. So that kind of taps into that affiliate part as well. So I really found my footing during COVID because I was really blessed to land here at Pepperdine and complete the master's in organizational leadership at age 21 during the pandemic. So I was balancing school, a full-time job, my assistantship here at Career Services. I used to work for Career Services, and consulting. So there's been a lot to learn, and I'm still pretty early on in my career, but I've accomplished so much, and I look forward to learning more from my fellow peers on this panel because they're so accomplished. But I've professionally worked at Bentley Lamborghini, Amazon Music, and Microsoft. So a lot of kind of different specialties. I have a background in government for undergrad and now leadership, and kind of film taps into that marketing realm. So I'm finding my footing even more so to kind of tap into all of those things, which is really fun to do.
That's fantastic. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into some of these questions. And I want to start with you, LJ. How did you get started with having these multiple career opportunities? And when did you get started? When was the first time from your first job did you say, okay, let me build on that and add on different revenue streams?
Yeah, that's a big one. So from my first job being all the way back to working in software sales and logistics and hating what I was doing, I realized there were a lot of problems, and I was actually going back for my master's during that time, and I was learning about meditation, mindfulness, stress reduction, and I realized I could apply this to so much of what I was doing on a daily basis and the interactions I was having. So I started to take notes at that point. Anyone that's not journaling, I always recommend journaling because you're going to have those ideas that you can bring back. As I went through my master's program, moving from counties, I was able to work in different agencies in inpatient, outpatient, and residential, and really got to see the gaps in the industry of mental health, and where I could fill those areas, whether it was someone that could just be present with someone when they're in like a psychotic state, an extreme state, someone that's comfortable with extreme behaviors. And I started to create my own model of therapy that way, and then realized that since I can't work with people under my own practice until I'm licensed, I can do some type of coaching. And that helped me broaden my area of expertise, where I was working not only with one population, but multiple populations. And because I was specializing in trauma, most human beings have some traumatic experience. And so that human nature, really understanding that piece, gave me a lot of opportunities to speak from the multicultural background that I have. and being offered spots to just talk about what was going on in my community, what's helpful, what's not, actually opened up the door for being able to be a board member for Clearly Clinical. And so really it came from being open to my growing edge is what I call it. Those areas that I feel a little uncomfortable or I don't feel like I'm an expert in yet, just really diving into that and being a student to whatever the new situation is, really has helped get me into these different areas. And I didn't mention that I am a professor, an adjunct professor at Pepperdine University, which actually came from a speaking engagement I did from that Clearly Clinical podcast. So a lot of times it was being able to put my voice out there and not being afraid of the opportunity, but really embracing that newness of the experience.
Okay, well, that's good to know how one opportunity built upon another one. So that's good. I want to ask both you, LJ, and Sean. Both of you are authors. Both of you are adjunct professors, but you're both have from different backgrounds because Sean is from the education side and LJ, you're from the psychology side. So how is it that you even have the time to even write a book and then work as an adjunct and have your additional revenue streams? How are you able to do that? So Sean, I'm going to start with you and then I'm going to come back to you, LJ.
Okay. Yeah, I got a little chuckle when you said that, Renee, because believe it or not, I am less busy now than I was when I was in corporate, when I worked in pharmaceuticals. And the reason for that is I have less meetings. And there's, no corporate events I have to attend. I don't have a boss. I don't have a team that I work with. So I don't have the usual, business work demands that most people have when you have a 9-to-5 job. So I actually, and this has been the case for the whole, 8 years that I've had my own businesses, I have more free time now because I don't have these meetings. So I am able to juggle multiple things. And for me, I really enjoy that because I've always been kind of a jack or Jane of all trades, I should say. And I've always had a lot of different interests. But for me, the EDOL program for me really helped me focus my interest onto what started with my dissertation topics of women and leadership and the barriers there, and what men and women experience in their careers, and that led to more DEI topics and then bias topics, and then EQ. So my dissertation really helped me hone in on, what my areas of expertise are, and then build that business. So for me, it makes it pretty simple because I just have 5 areas really that I teach, speak, coach, consult, and I'm in those spaces. And but fortunately they're broad spaces. So, leadership broad, gender broad, DEI, bias, and EQ, they're all broad topics, broadly applicable. But those 5 areas is really, I hone in on. So that helps me manage my time and my energy because, I'm deep into those spaces. So, but yeah, overall, to answer your question, I actually have more free time now than I had when I was working a job. Even with 6 different revenue streams, I have more time. So,
Wow. What about you, LJ? Would you have the same type of freedom or free time?
I would say I'm getting there. I'm, what the thing that I've noticed has been really helpful is like discipline and accountability for myself.
Okay.
When I'm not, just as Sean had shared, is like not having to go to meetings that were going to take up so much of my time, but being able to plan out my day accordingly. And really, what I've noticed, I've broken away from the traditional, this is how you're supposed to work, and really looking at what works for me, understanding my flow. Am I more task oriented early at 6 in the morning? Okay, I'm going to get up at 4 or 5, do my
Right.
workout, and then get into it. By 11 or 12, I'm going to be engaged in more of the fun, creative side where I don't have to overthink or problem solve as much. And that's really lightened up my day to where I've started to have routines of this is when I write, this is when I'm journaling. Like anytime, and knowing that it doesn't need to be complete. I think that's the hardest thing about entrepreneurship, is that if you're in that perfection mode of it needs to be done, you can get caught up on a project that might not be bringing you in the same income of the other one that's already pretty much done, and you just have to finish that last piece of it. So finding that discipline in myself, and knowing where my weak points are, has really helped give some space to that. And also being able to say, hey, I'm going to need a little bit more time on some of these other projects, as I'm creating some of the protocols right now for psychedelic integrations. It hasn't been done in certain ways, and so being able to ask for that, and being gentle with myself as I'm doing it, is really important.
Okay, that's
Yeah, and I just want to say I totally agree with that, because knowing how you work is really key. Because you don't want to be sitting on the couch eating bonbons till 3 in the morning and then get started, because you have no boss making you do things. So knowing yourself, and knowing when is your peak times and when is your lighter times, that really helps manage your energy a lot. And even teaching, now that I've been a professor for a while, I used to wait until the last minute to do everything when I was in corporate. Now, ironically, I prep like a week ahead of time now, and I've just kind of structured my time where I go in, I prep, and I'm ready for the next week. Everything's done. All I got to do is show up and do it. So I find that I am a better preparer now than I used to be when I was busier, actually.
wow. So basically, having all these different revenue streams helped you to organize your time so that you can participate in each one. So
Yes.
as you're doing that, how much time do you give to each one of these different revenue streams? And since you're both, like I said, since you're both authors, did you find that writing the book and completing that first was necessary in order to have that passive revenue coming in, so that you can continue to work on future opportunities?
Not for me. And I was thinking about the evolution of these different revenue streams, but I have a training background, and so my first year in business, my first 2 years, I was doing speaking and training workshops primarily, and this was before the book. So I had some income coming in, although it was pretty lean, honestly, compared to my corporate salary. It was pretty lean, but that kept me afloat, speaking, and I was just starting to get my name out there. And, it takes a couple of years to really hone in on your business model. And so, and figure everything out. So I was doing that a couple of years. Then I wrote my book, and that took a whole year on top of my dissertation. So for me, writing the book was way harder than I thought, because I'd already done a dissertation. I thought, oh, this would be a piece of cake. It was not. Having to research it, and nobody wants to read an academic dissertation, so I had to make it applicable, have examples, add some humor, make it, relevant, all these different things to make it apply broadly. And so the book took me another year to write. But then, so yeah, I would say my first few years in business, the book did take up most of my time, that third year. And then I was still doing speaking and training workshops on the side for income. And then the book launched, and then the other income streams have come after that. The coaching, the consulting, the teaching all came after the book for me.
I see. Okay, LJ, what about you?
Yeah, the book, I was lucky enough to have a partner in working with it who had published several books. And so she had told me before, don't expect any money out of this, and really making it as an enjoyment project. And my intention with it was really to just help educate, because I only get clients for maybe an hour, 2-hour sessions. And so how do you help people that are going through things that are similar to you? And so I use that as a way of, this is a resource for other people. And so it also gives me credibility where, someone might look at my LinkedIn page or look at my website, but they don't have a lot about me. And so they can look in my book and understand where I'm coming from and why my approach is the way it is, why I articulate myself in the way I do. So that's really, and this is my second book, and really that's where my focus is on the books I'm putting out. I'm trying to put them out just to condense some of the psychological information that we have, because yeah, no one's going to read the case studies and all the research papers, but if we can humanize them, then all of a sudden people can use those tools. And so that's really where my push for the books has been, is that it's not going to be this big revenue stream right now. It
Okay.
may be as my speaking engagements grow, people
Right.
want to read more and find out more,
Mhm.
but not putting pressure on it, making it an enjoyable process, which is, to Sean's point, it's very difficult because there's a lot of ego death in there that you have to go through as you put
Right.
something out about yourself.
Right. Okay, now Kate, you are a current student and you have multiple revenue streams. So, and we have a lot of students who are listening to this whole discussion. So, how do you manage being in school and then working with your other your revenue streams? How do you do that?
Yeah, so for me, a very detailed calendar work to keep returning to and really focus on what's most important. I have everything on my calendar, and I've heard a few of my classmates are the same way, and they're like, if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist. And
Right.
that includes like rest breaks and like events or just kind of anything that goes into like your life. And I know we can't control work or school many times. So for me, it is really important to plan something unrelated to work and school into my schedule, something that makes me happy and everything worthwhile, whether it be like booking a concert or just a simple day at the beach, to really look forward to enjoying it and kind of giving my mind that much needed break.
Right.
It's always okay to ask for help and delegate. My personal time saver is really just like ordering and picking up groceries so I don't have to go in the store and get lost in everything, and great takeout, because you and your time and your well-being are worth it. I order a lot of things. It doesn't have to be like bad food. You can order plenty of healthy things, but in the next, depending on what program everyone is in, the 2, 3, 4 years, life will happen and you'll be challenged and you'll adjust. Keep putting God into everything. And that really keeps me on track, because you'll look back knowing you're in the 13% of the nation with an advanced degree. So you got this. But for me, yeah, just really kind of focusing on what's most important, and really time blocking. For me, my professional job, I try and start as early as possible with my full-time job so that by mid-afternoon, I can go into consulting. When I had my assistantship, I could do that either one. I kind of alternate on days. I don't do everything every day.
Right.
And at the nighttime, I figured that was best for me to really kind of center and dive into schoolwork or write my capstone. And that was what worked for me.
So let me ask you, how did you decide on the different opportunities that came available to you? Or how did you say, okay, I have this one job that I'm working on, but I want to do these other things? So how did you make that decision? Were some of these other things a passion for you, or you just thought, oh, this may be some good money that I could bring in?
It's a little bit of both. I think last week one of my professors said that when he and his business partner are considering to take on a new opportunity or project, they make sure that they like what they do and work with people they like. And I really couldn't emphasize those 2 points more. Some days there's a lot on my plate, but I always enjoy what I do and the people I'm surrounded by, which is a huge blessing and privilege. So don't be afraid to say no to things that won't fit into your purpose. But as far as, yeah, juggling that, it kind of just happened for me with these opportunities. I do think I'm really well versed in juggling many responsibilities at any given time since a young age. I started college undergrad at age 14, so I always kind of had a lot on my plate. But there were some pretty great mentors that were my professors in the MS program here at Pepperdine, where I looked at them utilizing leadership to explore multiple revenue opportunities simultaneously. So I really kind of absorbed that and opened myself up to those opportunities the past year or two, seeing them being, consultants and coaches. And this is kind of where I will stress the importance of polishing that LinkedIn portfolio, website, anything like that. I'm sure we may get into branding later, but the team here at Career Services is so well equipped to help the students do. I definitely learned a lot in my position here. No man's an island, so definitely seek out help and utilize those resources because they are part of your tuition. but yeah, just really opening myself and making sure that the brand was consistent and I was kind of aligned with everything and polishing everything to be best prepared and open to those opportunities when they came in.
No, that's good to know. And I'm glad you mentioned LinkedIn and branding, because that leads me to the next question, which is, how did each one of you decide how to brand yourself when you have different revenue streams? And LJ, I'll start with you. How did you decide to do that?
Yeah, so I knew I was going to be doing multiple things. I wasn't just going to be limited to psychotherapy. And I wanted to make sure I was creating something that would last wherever my shifts would go. And so when I created Nomad Healing Practices, I took about a year to just think about the name and the identity, and really creating a mission statement that connected with what I was doing. I started off in Northern California. I'm all the way here in San Diego now. So I've been kind of a nomad, and that just made sense to me.
Okay.
And yeah, just finding different avenues. Social media was a big one, just posting weekly blogs around mindfulness and meditation, because that's what I was doing. And that's how I've attracted a lot of my clients, because that's what they're looking for.
Absolutely, absolutely. That sounds great. Sean, how did you brand yourself? Because you have multiple revenue streams as well. So what did you do?
Yeah, so my doctorate actually has helped in this quite a bit, because my brand is actually Dr. Sean Andrews, and that's the name of my website, even drshawnandrews.com. So I have branded myself as Dr. Sean Andrews, and it's based on authority and credibility and deep expertise, and those areas I mentioned earlier.
Right.
So that's what I'm known for. I'm known for, I would say, authority and an authority figure and expert in these areas. And my passion, I would say, passion is probably the number one descriptor when people, hear me speak or attend a workshop or something. That comes through. And so my passion for the topic is part of my brand, and also my ability to influence and impact, positively impact others. So, and that's consistent across all of my topics. And again, I have broadly applicable topics, but it's all branded under the kind of the credibility, expert, authority, as my personal brand. And that's remained consistent from day one.
That's fantastic. That's wonderful. I thank all three of you. Now we're going to open things up for questions from the audience.
So Dr. Dorn, I think Sean just answered Scott's question. So we have another question from Seema for LJ. Can you talk a little bit more about the intersection of your work on trauma and so psychology and corporate training? What is the type of problem they approach you with?
So anxiety is a big one. Those fast-paced, energized meetings. How do you deal with the constant anxiety, stress, not feeling that you're meeting goals? And then how do you coach your employees when you know that they're dealing with some type of depression or a past trauma? I've had clients where, from their boss slamming a desk really loudly out of anger, having a flashback to their childhood and being helpless and not really understanding that. So being able to cultivate that understanding with them, one with the manager level, so they understand that they have influence and they impact the people under them, as well as the employees, really helping them gain a sense of power and authority over themselves and what works for them. And the mindfulness piece, when I was in grad school, that was very what do you mean by that? What, like breathing? Why are we going to do that? And now it's become this big movement. And so really teaching people about the nervous system and the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, the differences, and just giving them that understanding that they're able to take some time for themselves, replenish, recharge, and then go back into battle if they need to. That comes up a lot.
Okay, thank you. There's We have a question for Sean from Marina, and she's wondering how you started with actually getting the speaking and training work initially.
Yes, that's an excellent question. So I mentioned I finished my doctorate in 2013, and then 2014 my company got acquired and I got laid off right the next year. But what had happened is in I think it was the end of 2013, while I was working at Allergan, I approached. So I'm part of the Healthcare Businesswomen's Association. I'm actually president of the Orange County chapter, and I've been associated with that organization for many years as a member and speaker. So the HBA was looking to do a program at Allergan, and I actually went to them and I said, you know what, I just finished my doctorate on women in leadership, broad topics and all the barriers and, that women encounter and what we could do about it and all that. And they were really interested in the topic. And so I went to Allergan and said, could we host this? And they agreed. And so we were able to get the auditorium. HBA helped advertise it as a program. So I was an employee at the time, but I was speaking on behalf of the HBA, and Allergan, my company, hosted it. And there were probably 150 people who showed up to that, my very first talk on my basically my research. And the response I got really encouraged me and taught me that, I'm onto something here. This is really striking a chord with people. And, and so from there, I've just honed it and refined it. And it's still one of my signature talks that I give. It's changed quite a bit now over the years, but that was my first talk that I gave while I was an employee. And then I'm also certified practitioner in insights, colors, as well as emotional intelligence. So I had that from when I was employed. And so I was already doing training workshops anyways on those topics. And then I started marketing. I basically use social media to, advertise or promote the fact that I'm certified. And so I started getting a couple clients and doing insights, colors workshops and EQ workshops initially too. So that's how I got started, basically, with the speaking and the workshops. And that, carried me through my first couple of years of my business until I got my name out there more and people started, hearing me more and, getting the visibility.
That's good to know. Thank you, Sean. We have a lot more questions that are coming through, which is great. So I'm going to give this next question. It's for Kate. From Connor, he said, I believe you said that you received your master's in organizational leadership. If that's a yes, how has that degree benefited you? And this person is currently enrolled in the program and just wondered what your post-program experience has been like.
Thanks for the question. It's been amazing. Yes, I was in the org leadership program, and it benefited me tremendously from almost the get-go. As soon as I kind of put Pepperdine and that was in progress on my resume, I started having all these opportunities kind of come to me, which is kind of funny to say, but Pepperdine is a really well-respected university. And it kind of comes up in every single interview I'm in also. They're like, oh, Pepperdine. They talk about the Malibu campus and like, oh, I always drive by it. It's so great. How is it? Like, it's kind of a great little icebreaker conversation piece too. But that particular degree in general was just so beneficial to me because I always kind of refer to it as like a philosophical MBA because I am not a huge math person, but just getting into the leadership and how you can work in an organization was just such a tremendous like benefit for me, and it's why I'm continuing on to pursue the PhD in global leadership and change because the professors are amazing and the content you really get, it really kind of changes your mind to what you can do in an organization, the opportunities that you may not realize are out there. I'm looking into getting like a Scrum certification and becoming a Clifton strengths trainer as a result of coming out of that program, because just the leadership, there's so much that you can do with it. It's a really versatile degree that can really tap into whatever background you had before. I came from like entertainment and government, and now I'm doing leadership. You can really just blend whatever that is, your niche, into it.
That's excellent. Thank you. Here's another question. This is sort of open. If someone isn't currently working within the field while attending graduate school, what advice or steps would be advisable in order to get an early foothold prior to practicum? And this question is from Douglas.
I would say reach out to some programs that catch your eye. If you're not actually in an agency yet, being able to just look at like what are the foundations of some of the mental health, if it's mental health programs, and then really working on your self-care, because that's the one thing that isn't emphasized enough. Because once you get involved and you're in practicum and you're going and you're seeing clients, that ball gets rolling really quickly, and usually our self-care is the first thing that goes out the door, because your time gets taken up pretty fast. And anytime you're opening a new venture, that's usually what's going to be the case. But reach out to mentors, people that you think can give you a little bit of advice. I know that for me, I wanted to work with trauma, I wanted to work with veterans and first responders, so that's where I reached out to. Usually it's helpful to find someone that's kind of found their own path, and they can give you a little bit of feedback on the way there.
Okay, thank you. Now here's a question for Sean, but I think both LJ and Kate can answer some of this question also. This is from Pamela. She said that she is also in corporate America, and she can see a great need for more emphatic leadership and DE&I training. How do you go about finding opportunities to consult and work with corporations? And is it through referrals? And do you do your own research and pitch ideas? Would love to know your process. This is for Sean, but I think LJ and Kate can also answer some of that too. So Sean, what answer do you have for Pam?
So yes and yes to her question. So I started, actually my first topics were women in leadership and EQ, because that's what my dissertation was based on. I was kind of known for that initially, but then I started branching out into the broader DEI space, because gender rolls up under DEI. And so then I started actually doing more research myself, and I attend webinars and events, and I keep up with the literature on the topics and what's relevant, what the latest data is, and then so I keep up on it. But then referral is also how I got into DEI. So I gave a bias talk. This is what actually led to my consulting. Is I about 5 years ago, I led a bias presentation for a pharmaceutical company back east, and a woman in the audience at the time, who I had not met, never met her. She was in the audience. She heard me speak on bias. 2 years later, she moves to another company, and she remembered me. And they were looking for someone to help them with their DEI strategy. And I made an impression on her, and she remembered me. So they reached out to me on LinkedIn, her company, and said, "Do you do DEI consulting?" And I said, absolutely. That had become an area of expertise for me. And I was starting to do a lot of DEI and bias talks. And so I put together a proposal, and I've never done consulting, and at least real consulting. I dabbled in it through my doctoral program, but I didn't really have a client. And so anyways, they reached out to me. I gave them a proposal, and they selected me, and I've been consulting with them for over a year now. That has led to another referral opportunity with a completely different industry. One company is cybersecurity, the other is construction. Not related at all, but they have the exact same issues when it comes to DEI. So I've been consulting with both companies for a year now, and I've really enjoyed it. And I actually enjoy it more than I thought I would, because I'm primarily a speaker, but I've really enjoyed the consulting, because I can help impact the whole culture of the company. So hopefully that answered the question.
Thank you. So LJ, what about you? Working with other corporations, how did you get into that?
Yeah, I just always go back to, like, your network is your net worth. That concept Sean was speaking to, like, being able to connect with your network. And if there is a pool to it, like, I wanted to do more consulting work. I didn't want to be involved or like fully in a corporation because I had seen what it felt. I'd been in there before.
Right.
So I wanted to be able to touch in, give some feedback, give some tools. And a lot of my peers that I graduated with in undergrad, they all went into different types of work, and most of them are in corporate America, and have been in startup, established companies. And so they gave me opportunities where they would just say, hey, we're dealing with this. Do you have any ideas? And I would be able to put together some bullet points. This is what we can do. This is what I can offer you. I can come in and do some training, or I can just do a speaking engagement, and giving that price. And that's really how I got started. And usually I'm not looking for new opportunities. They're coming and finding me at this point.
Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent. And Sean, both you and LJ, you've been doing your own research and pitching ideas.
Yeah. So I do my own. I have my own research on all of my topics, just to keep abreast on keep current. But I would agree with LJ on that. I love that, by the way, LJ. Your network is your net worth. That's great. But I would say 95% of my business comes from referrals. I don't really I'm not even that active on social media. I probably should be more active, but most of it comes from people hearing me speak or hearing about me and referring me. That's where most of my business comes from.
Okay. All right. And Kate, what about you? Because you also work with corporations. So how did you get into that?
Yeah, for time's sake, I tried to put a little piece in the chat, but a great piece of advice I got was that startups were kind of a great place to utilize those new or existing skills, especially when you're coming out of like a degree program and so many people want like real experience.
Right.
So I started consulting with startups, and now it's kind of a great realm for me, as I said. And AngelList is a website I really recommend. It's for kind of like, it's more tech geared, but it's a kind of a great place to identify those up and coming startups. There's a lot of really active ones on there. You can find some really great ones that are more philanthropic or education or just pure tech. Really highly recommend that.
All right, thank you. I think it's about time for us to wrap this portion up. So I want to thank Sean and LJ and Kate for being in this panel today. The information you have provided has been invaluable. And just like everybody else was taking notes, I was too, because I was so interested in everything that you had to say. And because this is recorded, this will also be available to our students and faculty, staff, and alumni who are interested in seeing this and gaining all of the information that you provided us again today. So once again, thank you for being in our panel today. And I'm going to pass this on to Yas for our career resources that are available to everyone.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Dorn. And I just want to echo our appreciation. Our panelists volunteered their time out of their busy revenue streams to be with us today. And so it really speaks to who you are and your willingness to want to help and lift others. So thank you for being a part of our Jammy. So we just want to close with providing you a reminder or perhaps new information about the resources that you have available to you. So as part of Career Services, we offer a number of different resources, but the main resource I wanted to share with you today is Handshake. Many of you already know about Handshake because that's how you registered for this event. But if you don't know about it and you're a student or an alumni, it has a number of different tools available for you. First of all, it works like a Netflix. So the more you use it, the more it suggests different presentations or employment opportunities that are really customized to your interests. And so you can actually curate different employment opportunities through Handshake. It also provides a career resource library. So we provide resume tips, interview questions, cover letter outlines, specifically for our education and psychology students and alumni. Handshake also allows you to schedule appointments with us. So we offer document and social media consults. And so if you need help customizing your resume, CV, cover letter, or learning about different online career tools, a document and social media consult is a great way to go about doing that. And then in addition to those, we offer career design sessions. And so that's where you meet with one of our team members and we can help you in clarifying your next step or repositioning yourself for advancement, or figuring out how to get your foot in the door when you're trying to make a career change. So more larger goal setting or clarification type of information and support would be through our career design sessions. And I also just want to remind you that you have access as a student to LinkedIn Learning and Coursera, where you can upskill. So Kate had mentioned how she is taking different courses to really try to upskill and add additional credentials or certifications. So LinkedIn Learning and Coursera are great ways to do that, and they are free for our Pepperdine students. So now I will pass it over to Sophia.
Yes. So today we
Turn mine on.
So today we learned about Pep Connect, which we learned about networking and how your network is your net worth. And Pep Connect is an online platform for all Pepperdine members. It has over 10,000 members on there, and you can connect with the whole Pepperdine community, whether it be staff, alumni, faculty, students. You can also market yourself and your business on there. It's a great online platform where you're just able to connect with the whole Pepperdine community and really use all the resources that Pepperdine provides for you. So I would definitely recommend going on Pep Connect if you haven't signed up yet. It's free. So yeah, it's a really great resource, and I thank everyone for coming today.
Great. Thank you, Sophia. Okay, so let's, before I turn it over to Usman, I just wanted to share with you all that we do have a Jammy Career Webinar Drive, and you'll be able to see our past Jammy Career webinars as well as a recording from today, and you'll also be able to access the speaker lineup. So Franya will put that link in the chat, and just know that you all have access to the information from today after the program is finished. And we'll move on to Usman.
Hi everyone, my name is Usman. I'm here as part of our career services team at GSEP, and I want to share more about our commitment to DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So our vision at GSEP Career Services, as you can see, is that every graduate will have the clarity, confidence, and community to access, thrive in, and transform the future workplace. And as part of our diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging efforts here at GSEP Career Services, we are committed to ensuring students and alumni have access to our resources, as well as our services from an equitable lens, and to be able to foster a sense of community and belonging for each of you, including our alumni, while honoring each student's individual background and identity as well. I also want to share some reflection tools and resources and articles with you. So the social identity wheel, which we're sharing with you on the chat, is developed by the United Way for Southeastern Michigan, which is a social services org in Michigan, and they're committed to deconstructing systemic racism while advancing diversity, equity, inclusion for all. And the social identity wheel essentially is an evolving tool to help us better map out our different dimensions of our social identity. And the wheel allows us to better understand how identities shape experiences across all dimensions. Social identity essentially refers to the aspects of someone that are formed in relation to the society they belong to, rather than personality traits or interests that make up who we are and our sense of self. Social identities describe the socially constructed groups that we belong to and we identify as being a part of in our environment. And I would like you to reflect in terms of which identities are you most aware of, as well as how do your identities influence your sense of belonging at work, home, school, or within the community. As part of our resources, I'm also sharing diversityjobs.com, and there's a lot of career-wise tips and strategies for job seekers across diverse backgrounds. There's a lot of articles on there as well in terms of different trends, as well as information and resources for you. And in terms of the article we're sharing is called The Bias of Professionalism. Essentially, this is professionalism has become coded language for white favoritism in the workplace practices that more often than not privilege the values of white and Western employees and leave behind people of color. And the belief, to quote more from the article, essentially is that traditional standards and values are more objective and unbiased, and the emphasis on a sense of urgency and quality over quality, as well as perfectionism and binary thinking, which are some values of professionalism that have been established over time as history and fact, and creates a narrative of white favoritism in the world of professionalism today, playing out in the hiring, firing, and day-to-day management of workplaces around the world. And so we're also encouraging you to reflect upon these as well as part of our DEIB efforts.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Usman. Thank you. And I'd like to turn it over to Mecca to talk about what's next.
Thank you everyone for coming. We're very excited to present to you the next upcoming JME. So the next one we have is going to be October 19th, where we're going to be discussing or even learning from our panelists some of the strategies or best practices for us to navigate an environment that welcomes everyone, creating a safe space for everyone to feel welcome. Then another one we have is November 16th, where we'll be going through some of the procedures or even advices on how to navigate the high-tech job search tools. And then this one is going to be very good for everyone who's going to be attending. And also, if you can move to the next. For those who attended today, if you can just take a picture of this QR code and then fill the survey to let us know how today was, and then it can help us to prepare for the next JME. And then you're going to be eligible to win a free Amazon gift card. And this one is going to be an amazing opportunity for you to get something on Amazon too. If you can also follow us on social media, and we're going to give you all the links so you can keep up with us in everything that we're planning for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again, everyone, for taking the time to be here today, for your thoughtful questions. And again, to our panelists for just being willing to be a resource of wisdom and information and encouragement as well too. So you can see each of our panelists took different paths to get where they are and approach their work and their life differently. So it's so helpful to be able to hear these diverse perspectives. So before we sign off, for those that are willing, we'd love to take a final JAMI screenshot to be able to encourage others to attend as well. So no pressure. But if you're willing to turn on your camera, if not, you can go ahead and sign off. If you're willing to turn on your camera, and we'll do a 1, 2, 3 screenshot. And I think the more that we're able to encourage others to attend, the more people can benefit from these programs. So I'll give you a few more seconds. And then just to mix it up, just to make it fun, I'm gonna, on the count of 3, ask you to pick a reaction, okay? So it could be an emoji, it could be, a heart, whatever. Ready? Okay. So Nadine, are you ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon, evening, whatever time zone you're in, and we look forward to seeing you in October.
Thanks, everyone.